And in this topic, we started with the statistical considerations, and we did not go far in that. Okay, so the main problem is how to get a representative sample, representative of the population. So you are collecting few values, and how to make sure that these few values can represent the entire population, and then how can you extract conclusions from it. Okay, and then we went through some basic definitions, sampling method. Okay, we discussed three types of sampling methods: simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, and choice-based random sampling. Okay, and we discussed about sampling error, sampling size, and this is an equation for sampling size. Okay, and this is the correction for this equation. Okay, and then how can you calculate a sample size depending upon the confidence level and the percentage of error. Okay, so basically you put you come to this equation. Okay, and from this equation you take the standard error of x bar, okay, equal to the error which is mentioned, okay, and the confidence level which you are allowing, okay, in the mean, and on the basis of that you calculate the sample size. And we were basically looking at we looked at this example, how to make sure that we have enough samples in each of these cells. Okay, and there were two options. First of all, you collect or you make sure that you apply random sampling, and you make sure that the least the cell with the least percentage is satisfied. Okay, so you take the number of values in the least cell to be equal to the proportion in the entire population, and whatever number comes, then you will take the numbers for the other cells accordingly. And the second option was that you do a small survey at the start to find out which houses belong to which category, and then from that category you calculate, or from each category you take the required number of samples, so that the final detailed survey will be for less number of samples as compared to the first approach, but you need a short survey at the start. Okay, and I think we covered this one as well. How to make sure, or how to find out the proportion or possibility that a person will choose mode I from the sample depending upon the type of sampling you are applying. And we looked at this problem. Okay, so if you take a random sample, then the percentages will match with the actual data. But if you are taking samples, for example, 75% low income, 25% high income, so this is stratified sampling. And then what will be the percentage of the probability of choice for bus or car depending upon low income and high income group proportion in the sample. And the same thing can be done for choice based sample. So again, the possibility to be in low income group for a bus user, and the possibility to be in a high income group for the bus user. Okay, and now for example, if you are calculating so this is from the previous example. Okay, so in the previous example, if you want to find out what is the possibility that a car user will belong to high income group in the entire population, what is the possibility that a car user will belong to high income group? So like we have done in the previous example as well as in the previous topic as well, this is conditional probability. So in conditional probability, first of all, what is the common probability that a car user is in high income group, which is given for the population 20%. Okay, a car user in the high income group, 20% possibility. And then what is the total possibility for high income group? 0.35. So 0.2 or 0.35. Okay, so 0.572 for random sample. If you take any value randomly, there is 57% chance that a car user will belong to high income group. Okay, and if you do it for the stratified sampling. Okay, so in the stratified sampling, we have already calculated this table last time for the sample. Okay, so in the sample, a car user belonging to high income group has a possibility of 0.143. Okay, and the total possibility for the high income group is 25%. So 0.143 upon 25% will give you that a car user belongs to high income group in the stratified sample. So that is 57.2%. So there is 57.2% possibility that a car user will belong to the high income group in the stratified sample. Now, this possibility matches the overall possibility of the population. Okay, 57% and 57.2%, same. So whether you take a stratified sample or whether you take a random sample, the possibility for the sample and the population remains the same. Okay, so there is 57% possibility a car will belong to high income group in the population or in a random sample, and the same is for a car user belonging to high income group in a stratified random sample. Okay, so in both cases we have the same possibility. Okay, and in this case we call this as independent. If you go back to the previous topic, you will see that when the possibility, conditional possibility, is equal to the possibility overall, then we call it independent. Okay, so the stratification did not change the possibility of someone in the sample. So whether you take a random sample or a stratified random sample, the possibility for someone to be having a particular choice doesn't change. It will remain the same. But if you are taking exogenous choice-based sample, okay, so in choice-based sample, we collected data on the basis of choices, not on the basis of their income. Okay, so we collected 75% bus users and 25% car users. So in that case, then when we calculate the possibility that a car user will belong to high income group, then it will be the again, a car user belonging to high income group has a possibility of 0.125 in this sample. And how did we calculate it? We already done it in the last lecture. Okay, I'm not going through it again. So, but in the stratified choice-based sample, choice-based stratification sample, there's 12.5% possibility that a car user will belong to high income group. Okay, and the total possibility for high income group is 0.312. The total possibility for a high income group is 0.312. Now, if you take the ratio of that, then you get 0.4. So this is not the same as the population probability. Okay, but if you go back to the possibility of a car user, the total possibility that someone is a car user, that is 40% in the entire population. So when you take choice-based stratification, when you collect data on the basis of choices of the people, that I will have this much from this type of users with this choice, and I will have this much data from users of this choice, then in the end, the total probability for each choice will remain the same in the sample as well as in the population. Okay, so car user high income group has a total possibility of 40% for the entire population, and this is the same possibility for a car user to be in the high income group. Okay, so in that case, when you take choice-based stratification, then the data becomes independent. Okay, belonging to high income group and low income group doesn't matter. Okay, whether the car user belongs to high income group or low income group doesn't matter. The probability that you will have a car user in your sample is equal to the total probability of having a car user in the entire population. Okay, so if you go with a stratified sampling, then the possibility of any choice is the same as a random sample or as the population. Okay, when you go for choice-based sampling, then choice becomes independent of the type of user. The type of user does not have any effect, whether he is high income or low income. The total possibility for a card user is 40%, and this is the possibility you are getting here. Okay. Now when you are selecting the sample size, when you are doing the sampling, you have to take into your consideration two problems. Okay, the first problem is isolate the relevant group. Okay, so for example, I want to get the data for people who are from who are in one city. Okay, but it may happen that you go for data collection and you meet a traveler who is coming from outside the city. Okay, at that time you may not know, so you will waste a lot of time in collecting unnecessary responses. Okay, you may waste a lot of time in collecting unnecessary responses. Like it may have happened in your term project, the data which you have collected, you may find that for a particular age group you have more responses which were not required. Okay, you were requiring, let's say, 30 responses from this group, but eventually you have 40 or 50 responses, and in some other group you needed 30 responses but there are still 25 or 20. It can happen. Okay, so how to isolate the relevant group, the group from which I need the data? Okay, so this is a problem, because once you start data collection, you don't have the convenience of selecting travelers and respondents in the field. In the field, whoever comes to you, you will have to give him the questionnaire, and until he fills the questionnaire, you don't know to which group he belongs, whether his or her data is useful or not. So how to isolate the relevant group? Okay, and then the second problem is to ensure a random sample within each stratum, within each group of travelers. Okay, so for example, in the last problem, we wanted people from low income group and high income group. Okay, randomly. Okay, randomly. So I want people who belong to a low income group and I want people belonging to high income group, but I want to select people belonging to low income group randomly. Okay, it may happen, for example, if I ask you to collect data from some students and to collect data from people who are not students, it may happen that eventually you may end up collecting data from your friends who are students, because it's easier for you, more convenient, right? So in that case, anyone has a question? Okay, so how to make sure that within each class I am selecting the people randomly? Okay, so for example, you want to select people who are bus users for your questionnaire. How do I select them randomly? How do I select the routes on which I will collect data from the bus users? Okay, the only way where you can be sure that a person is a bus user is when you collect the data from the bus routes. People standing on the bus stops or people who are inside the bus, you can go inside the bus and ask them to fill the survey. They can do it because they are not driving. Okay, so this answers the first point. Okay, you want to question bus users. How to isolate the relevant group? Go to the bus stops. On the bus stops, you will only find bus users. Okay, or distribute the questionnaire to the people who are sitting inside the bus. Again, they are all bus users. So this answers the first problem. But what about the second problem? The second problem is, how do I make sure that these people are selected randomly? Okay, for example, if I'm collecting the data, I may prefer to collect it from boys or male than female. Okay, this is not random. Random means what? Whoever is there, I will collect data from him. This is random. Okay, but practically, you know, if any one of you has ever participated in a survey, or you have done a survey physically, like a full-fledged survey where you were required to do something, not for the purpose of class, because in the class I'm making, you know, relaxations for you. But a full-fledged survey where there were no relaxations, in that case, if you are just going to travelers or users or respondents on the basis of your convenience, then it's not random. Okay, then it will not be acceptable. So these are the two main problems which you have to keep in mind. Okay, I remember when I was doing my surveys, when I was doing PhD, and I was a researcher in some other research project as well. So collecting data randomly was a big issue. Okay, I was doing it in Saudi Arabia. So we had to go. The person who was in charge of data collection, he made sure he's a wise guy. He made sure that he has people from all nationalities in his team. So we had a Bengali guy, we had me, Pakistani, Indian, okay, 2 or 3 Arab students as well. So that to make sure that even if we are collecting data only from our convenient respondents, eventually it is he has responses from all types of drivers. Okay. Then finding out the size of each subpopulation. Okay, so I want to apply stratified sampling. Okay, and I haven't collected the data yet. So how do I know that how many people are high income, how many people are low income, how many are bus users, how many are car users? If I don't know that, how would I stratify them? Okay, so how do I know that my population can be divided into these groups, and what is the size of each group? How do I know that? Okay, so for that we have some direct measurement methods. For example, you go to the bus company and you ask them how many tickets you are selling, and then you take the counts of cars on the road or the cars registered in the kingdom. That is direct measurement. So you know how many cars are there, how many people are using the buses. This is direct measurement. Okay, if it is possible, good. Another thing is collect a random sample, which I mentioned in the previous problem as well, that you do a short survey, and the purpose of the short survey is just to find out the categorization of the users. So you are just asking people, do you use car or bus? Do you belong to this income or this income? And that's it. So maybe 2 or 3 simple questions collected randomly. It's not a detailed survey right now. This is a completely random survey just to find out what is the distribution of travelers in the area. Okay, so it's a short survey just to know how many classes of travelers I have, and what is the proportion of travelers in each group. Okay, or you can solve a system of simultaneous equations. Okay, you take a small on mode sample. Okay, and then you can obtain modal averages. Okay, and you can calculate, you can develop a set of equations which will give you the subpopulation fractions. Okay, so again it also requires to have a small sample which is collected for each mode, and then you do the rest of the calculation. And this is what you can see in this example as well. Okay, so they have collected a short sample for each mode. Okay, and in that short sample they found that average income of population is $33,600 per year. Average car ownership is 0.44 cars per household. Okay, so this is the data which they got from maybe census survey from the government, because they normally they calculate these things very frequently. Okay, then they did a small on mode survey. On mode means they collected a small sample in which they asked everybody, they asked people belonging to a particular mode. So this is basically choice based stratification. So they collected some samples from car users, bus users, and metro users. And now they know the average income of the entire population, right? And they know the average car ownership for the entire population. So in that short on mode survey, they were just asking people for 2 questions. What were these 2 questions? What is your income? And what is the household? What is the number of cars in the household? Income, number of cars in the household. Okay. So for example, they collected, let's say, 20 samples for car users, 20 for bus users, 20 for metro users. Okay. So it's a very short survey in terms of number of questions, only 2 questions, and it is also short in terms of number of samples. 10, 20 samples, not a big issue. Asking 60 people 2 questions, not a big issue. Okay, anybody can do it even like in half an hour. Okay, so they went to maybe gas stations or people or places where people come by car, parking garages and so on. They asked them their income and car ownership. Then they went to bus stops. They did the same thing. They went to metro stations. They did the same thing. Then from the sample of each group, okay, sample of car users, sample of bus users, sample of metro users, they calculated their average income and they calculated the car ownership, average car ownership for each group then. Okay, now the total, if I take the overall average of income, then it should be equal to the overall average of the population, right? If I take an average of these 3 values, it should give me the average income of the population. Okay, and again, if I do the overall average of the car ownership, this should be equal to the overall car ownership in the entire population. Okay, so now what they are doing, so they are this is the overall average equals the average of car users multiplied by F1. What is F1? Fraction of car users, proportion of car users in the population, plus 14,400, which is the average for bus users, into F2. What is F2? The fraction of bus users in the entire population. And then again, the average income of metro users into F3, and F3 is the fraction of people in the entire population which are metro users. Okay, and then they do the same thing for car ownership as well. This is the overall average, and this is for car, this is for bus users, and this is for metro users. And again, F1 means fraction of car users, F2 means fraction of bus users, F3 means fraction of metro users. Okay, now if you add all these fractions, it should be equal to 1, right? Car users plus bus users plus metro users should be equal to 100%. Okay, percentage of car users, percentage of bus users, percentage of metro users should be equal to 100%. 100% meaning 1. Okay, so this is the system of equation we are talking about. Now you can increase the number of equations if you increase the number of parameters. So for example, you can have a parameter for age as well. Then you have to ask each category the question for age as well. Then you can have another equation with age. Okay, the overall average age equals average of car user into F1 plus average of bus users into F2, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this system can be made as complicated as you want, but for the time being, it is only 3 equations and we have 3 unknowns. Okay, so give me the value of F1, F2, and F3. Go on. We have 3 equations, 3 unknowns. Okay, I'm asking you to calculate the values for F1, F2, and F3. Let me make it bigger. Okay, F1, F2, F3. We have 3 equations, 3 unknowns. Again, if you are good with matrix algebra, which we did in the previous topic, you can solve it with the system of like a matrix as well. But again, then you need to calculate the inverse and so on. If you just want to manipulate the values, that's fine.
F1 0.245.
Okay.
F2 0.6. F3 0.15.
15. Okay, if you calculate F1 and F2, then F3 will be just 1 minus these two values, right? Okay, now this means what? In the entire population, there are 24.5% car users, 60% bus users, and 15% metro users. And again, there's a small 0.5% error because of rounding off. Okay, this can happen. 0.5, 1% plus or minus is not a big issue. You can round off the numbers to get the exact value. Okay, so instead of 24.5, I can make it 25. A little bit of rounding off is not an issue. Okay, but coming back to the question, what did we calculate? We calculated the percentage of car users, bus users, and metro users in the entire population. 25% car users, 60% bus users, 15% metro users. So they are not like us at all. Okay, in our case, I think we will find more car users, right? Maybe 80% car users. Okay, so if you want to now apply stratified sampling or do something like that, you have to use these percentages which you have calculated. Okay, so this is how you can collect a short on mode survey data, and from that data you can calculate the percentages of different modes or different type of travelers in the population. But you should have the overall average values like they gave us here for the income and car ownership. Okay, now let us discuss about the errors in modeling and forecasting. So errors can be of two types. Okay, there are mainly two types of errors. Errors that may cause even correct models to yield incorrect forecasts. So the model is correct. Model meaning equation. The equation is correct. Okay, but still it is giving you wrong answers. Okay, still it is giving you a wrong answer. So you wanted a linear model and you have a linear model. Okay, and you wanted to have variable A, B, C in the model, and you have variable A, B, C in the model. Okay, so the model is correct, but still it is giving you wrong answers, incorrect forecast. Why? Because maybe the variables which you are putting in, the values which you are putting in the model are not correct. For example, you have a model for calculating car ownership, and in that model you are putting the value of income. So in the last lecture we saw that income can be related to car ownership. Obviously it is very common. So but you are putting, let's say, income for a person as 10,000 BD. Okay, and it may not be correct for any traveler in that area. All travelers in that area cannot have a income of more than, let's say, 5,000 BD. Okay, so since you are putting incorrect values, so obviously your answer will be incorrect. Okay, another possibility can be transference and aggregation errors. Okay, now transference means you took the equation from one set of travelers and now you are trying to apply it to some other set of travelers. Okay, let me give you a very easy example. For example, you have taken the concrete, or sorry, the mixed design of concrete from, let's say, the standards which are followed in Canada. Okay, and in Canada the weather is completely different. If you try to apply the same standards here and you are trying to or you are assuming that you will get the same strength, it is not possible. Okay, because those values will work there, it will not work here. Okay, so the same values may not give you the same strength of concrete and bearing. Okay, because of the weather conditions. So this is what we call as transference. Okay, in terms of highway design, we use very commonly driver reaction time. There's a very common thing, parameter which is used in highway design. So if you take the driver reaction time for Pakistan, for Dubai, and then you try to apply to drivers of Bahrain, it may work, it may not work. So if it doesn't work, it is not because reaction time is not important. No, it is important and you are using the correct equation, but the reaction time itself is not for this place. It's not for the local drivers. Okay. And aggregation error means that the way aggregation means summarizing the data. Okay. Combining the data. Aggregation means combining the data. Okay. So like for example, calculating averages. Average is what? Average is like an aggregation of the data. So if I give you 20 values, and if I ask you to aggregate the data, aggregation can be in the form of calculating mean, average. Okay, so there are different methods of aggregation. Okay, you can calculate a simple average, you can calculate weighted average, you can calculate median, you can calculate mode, okay, or the expected value for the frequency distribution. All of them are what? Aggregation methods. Okay, so if you use the wrong aggregation method, you should have taken median, but you are taking mean. Okay, and then you are using that in the equation, this will give you the wrong answer as well. Okay, so there are the errors which so the first type of error is the error which is caused because of the values which you are putting in the model. As simple as that. The model is correct, the equation is correct, the variables which are using are those which should be in the model, but you are not taking the values correctly because of any of these things. Okay. Then the other set of errors are which are caused because of incorrect model. The model itself is incorrect. Okay. Now, why the model will be incorrect? The equation which you are developing will be incorrect. It can be because you did not measure the variables correctly when you were before you develop the equation. Equations are developed on the basis of data. So if you did not measure the data correctly, then your equation will not be correct. Okay. Now I'm talking about the data which will be used for developing the equation. Okay. So if your method of measurement was not correct, then you collected the variables, you try to develop an equation on the basis of that. The equation obviously will not be correct. For example, you are using measurements, road measurements. Okay, for example, you are using road measurements, but your measuring instrument has an error. Okay, so that error will come in the measurements, and if you use those measurements to develop an equation, the equation obviously cannot give you the correct answers. Okay, the other problem can be because of sampling, and we have already discussed sampling errors and sampling considerations and so on and so forth. Because of biasness, because the sample is not random, or because you are collecting data from a particular type of travelers on because of your convenience and so on. So obviously, if the data is biased, the answer will be incorrect. For example, let me go back to the example of collecting data from students and people who are not students. Okay, so if I asked you collect 100 values, and since you are students, you go in your circles, the student circles, friend circles, and you collect 100 values. Okay, now that so and I ask you to use that data to develop a model for example, car ownership, or to predict the income, for example, income. Okay, if all 100 values belong to students, then the equation will only give you the answers which is very low, because that is the income of the students. Most of the students have zero income. There are many students who have zero income. So if you only use students' data to calculate anything from the model, then obviously that data will give you the income of the students. So in that case, the error is coming because of the sampling. You did not take the sample correctly. So the model which you developed did not take into account other types of travelers who are not students. Okay, and it can be because of specification errors as well. Incorrect model can be because of a specification error. A specification means what type of model you wanted to develop, or what variables you put into the model. For example, somebody comes and says that between mode choice, or between traffic flow and temperature, the relationship is inverse. Temperature is higher and traffic flow is lower. Okay, this makes sense, right? But it is not linear. Okay, linear would be what? A linear relationship would be that I write traffic flow here, okay, and the equation would be A into 1 minus temperature. This is the linear model, temperature with 1 degree. But maybe the actual relationship between them may be not linear. Okay, inverse and not linear. It may be, logarithmic. Okay, so instead of t, I should be using log t. Okay, or instead of t, I should be using exponential of t, maybe. Okay, so I should know these things. Okay, between two variables, what type of relationship is there? Is it linear, non-linear? If it is non-linear, then what type of non-linear? Okay, log, exponential, second degree, third degree. Okay, or in some cases you are putting the variables wrong. This is also a specification error. Okay, so you are putting, for example, you are saying traffic flow depends upon temperature, and it doesn't. Traffic flow doesn't depend upon temperature. Okay, now the important point here is the software. Obviously, in most of the cases, we use softwares to develop the equation. Okay, we have seen in the last topic that you can develop the equations manually as well, but those were very simple equations. I just showed you the calculation for a linear regression model, one input, one output. That can be done easily through manual calculation. But when it comes to a complete transportation related data or any practical data, the number of parameters are very quite a lot. So we will not do it manually. Then we will use software. Even if you do it manually, or using a software, the calculations itself will not tell you you should put this variable into the equation or you should not put this variable into the equation. Okay, I think I mentioned it last time as well, that in one of our papers, actually it was a very important part of my PhD, we use stock market indices of Saudi Arabia and Bahrain to predict traffic flow. This is what we did. Okay, and if you go and search with my name and stock market indices, you will find more than one paper there. More than one paper. So I use that concept in 3 or 4 different ways. Okay, almost in all the papers, when it went for the first review, the reviewer asked us, what are you doing? Why are you putting stock market and traffic flow in the same equation? What is their relationship? So in terms of every paper, I had to explain explicitly that I'm putting to incorporate the political conditions of the country or the economic conditions of the country. Okay, because all reviewers know in the software you can put anything and the software will give you some answers. The software is not smart enough, or the equations are not smart enough to select the variables for you. Okay, they cannot select the variables for you. You as a human being, you as the person who is the planning, you are the planner, you are the expert. So the expert has to decide which variables to put in and which variables should I not put in. Okay. So there's a joke as well. Okay, a joke or a trick question. Okay, for example, if you are driving a car and the speed limit of the road is let's say 60 kilometers per hour and the road width is, let's say, 10 meters. Okay, then what is the age of the driver? What would be your answer? Okay, if on a road the speed limit is 60 kilometers per hour and the width of the road is 10 meters, what is the age of the driver? Can you tell me the answer? Anyone has any answer? It's a trick question. Okay, it doesn't need any calculation. If you if you heard my question completely, For example, you are traveling on a road, and the speed limit is 60 kilometers per hour. The width of the road is 10 meters. What is the age of the driver who's driving a car? Tell me, anyone? I'll give you the exam, final exam.
Doctor, it will be equal to my age.
Yes.
Because I am the
Okay.
traveling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You are driving the car. It is equal to your age. So yeah, but this type of question should come in the exam, right? Okay. So what the point which I was making is, if I put this data, road width and speed limit, into a software, okay, and I try to forecast, I try to develop an equation which can give me the age of the driver, the software will develop an equation for that. Okay, you are smart enough to know that these things do not match. Okay, width of the road and speed limit has nothing to do with this, with the age of the driver, right? All of you agree? I hope so. But the software doesn't know that. The software is only looking at the data, 2 inputs, 1 output, and it will give you the equation. Okay, that equation will not be accurate, obviously, because these variables are not related to each other, but the software doesn't know that. Or if you follow a series of calculations, which I showed you in the previous topic, to develop the equation, you can still do it without knowing whether the data is related or not. So you have to use your own judgment to know which variables should be in the equation and which variables should not be in the equation. Okay, somebody comes and says, I want to develop a model for a traffic forecast, okay, traffic flow, and I will put in the equation width of the road, number of lanes, number of accidents on the road, and the number of members in the ministry, number of people who are working in the ministry. You can put it, okay, but it will not give you the correct answer. That number of members in the ministry does not have anything to do with the traffic flow, right? So this has a specification error. And the important part about the specification error is you have to judge it. Okay, there is no calculation, there is no equation, there is no software which can judge whether you are making a specification error or not. Okay, especially in terms of variables. If you are making an error in terms of measurement, anybody can cross check it and tell you your problem. If you are making a sampling error, you can take the data from census or some previous survey and you can know that you are making a sampling error. Or you can look at the data and you can know that all the data is coming from one type of traveler. So you can know these things, but specification error, you have to be a good expert in that. Okay, so overall there are 3 types of errors. We have we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 types of errors. Okay, we have measurement errors. Okay, measurement errors means you did not design the questions properly. Okay, so for example, you were asking for travel time, but you did not mention the units. Okay, whether the unit should be minutes or hours or what. Or let me give you an example. I was doing a questionnaire survey for people who travel on the causeway, right? And I was asking them the time of their trip, Some of them answered 2 days. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why would someone answer that my trip on causeway took 2 days? Okay, it can be 1 hour, 2 hours. Why 2 days or 3 days? What could be the reason? Yes, anyone? Why would somebody say that it took me 2 days to go from Saudi Arabia to Bahrain, or from Bahrain to Saudi Arabia? Anyone?
Problem in his car, maybe.
No.
long road, يعني too much to high distance.
What was he doing? Swimming?
No, but maybe
No,
he's referring to the end of Saudi Arabia, so it will take from him 2 days actually.
no. I was asking in the mom. Okay, the problem was when I said a trip. When I said a trip, they assumed that I mean how much time they spent in Bahrain. A trip, yeah. Usually, a trip means what? I had a trip to London. It means what? I just went
Go
there
and back.
in a plane and came back. No, it means what? I went there, I spent some time, and then I came back. So a trip for a person, a layman, trip means you go there, you spend some time, you come back. All of that is what? One trip. So that was our mistake. We did not ask them about the travel time. I should have asked how much time it takes you to go from Saudi Arabia and from one checkpost to another checkpost. So then I had to revise the question. Then I asked them how much time you waited on the causeway, how much time it would take you from going from one toll plaza to the other toll plaza, or from one border to the other border. Then I modified the question. Okay, so this is wrong design of the question. So obviously that data is what useless for me. Somebody said 2 days is useless. It doesn't take 2 days. Okay, something again which is relevant, difference in perception and units between modeler and traveler. So for example, you were asking him in terms of income, the how much you earn per month. He's a Saudi and he's saying 20,000. So he means 20,000 riyals, and I'm modeling in Bahrain. If I understand 20,000 BD. Okay, so this can cause a measurement error. Forecasting of future values for explanatory variables. Now, what is the purpose of developing an equation? The purpose of developing the equation is to do something for the future. Okay, so I have an equation. If I want to predict something for the future, I will use the equation. Okay, in the equation, I have to put the values for future. Okay, so for example, you developed an equation which takes road width, number of lanes, and design speed, and gives you the capacity of the road. Okay, so I have to put, I want to design a road after 20 years. So I have to put in the equation the speed limit and road width and number of lanes for future. So in some cases, you are not putting the values exactly which will be in the future. That is also part of the measurement error. Okay, because it is also related to measuring the values. Okay, so the future values. Okay, future values of the explanatory variables. The variables which you need to put in the equation to get the correct answer, maybe you're not putting their values correctly. Okay, or their values are not correct. Then sampling errors. Sampling errors can be reduced by increasing the sample size, as simple as that. Sampling error basically means that your sample is not representative of the population. Whatever is happening in the entire area, you collected a small sample, and that sample is not showing you what is actually happening. So that is a sampling error. How to minimize the sampling error? Collect more samples. Simple. Okay. Then we can have computation errors. Computation errors is to find out, what type of equation can be used to model the parameter, but it is an iterative process. Nobody knows until I tell you. Nobody knows what type of equation to be used. Okay, should I use a linear equation or a polynomial equation or a logarithmic equation? Nobody knows until you do it yourself. So it's a trial and error procedure. You try one equation, and if you go back to the thing which we did in the last lecture, how to check if the equation is giving you valid answers. Okay, so you develop an equation, you apply all the checks satisfied, you may stop there. Checks are not satisfied, cancel the equation, maybe try another type of equation. Okay, maybe try equation with exponential, try equation with logarithmic. Okay, and in one equation there are a number of parameters, and all parameters may not have the same relationship. Okay, it can happen that, for example, f is related to, let's say, a, b, and c. The relationship of f with a is, let's say, linear. Okay, but its relationship with b is logarithmic. and its relationship with C is negative linear. Okay, so you can imagine how many combinations are possible in this case. Okay, maybe A is also log, or A is negative log, okay, or C is positive log. There are so many combinations possible. So there is not a possibility that you can check all the possible combinations of an equation. Okay, so you have to stop at some point. So usually we keep an accuracy level in our mind that if you reach this much accuracy, if the equation is giving this much accurate answer, and all the other checks are also met, then we'll stop there. Okay, and those checks were covered in the end of the last topic. Okay, then we have specification errors. Specification errors including irrelevant variable. I already gave you the example with the age of the driver relating to speed limit. Exclusion of relevant variable. So a variable has an impact on an equation, but you are not considering it. Okay, for example, you want to develop an equation for a strength of concrete, and then you are not taking into equation water cement ratio. Water cement ratio has an impact on the strength of concrete, so it must be in the equation. If you don't take it, then you are making this type of an error. Okay. Not accounting for taste variations. Okay. I think I gave you the example of Dr. Khalil, right? That he used to come from Sakhir campus to Isa town by bus. Okay. Now he is similar in characteristics to most of the people who are in faculty in our department, right? But it was his choice that with the same type of income, with the same type of everything, he is still going by bus. Okay, so in many cases, your model should be flexible enough to account for irregular travelers. Okay, unique travelers. Okay, travelers who make a decision on the basis of their own judgment, which is not making sense to other travelers, or which is not in conformity to the rest of the travelers. Okay, so you will find many travelers in the same income group and they are going by car, but there are few travelers who are going by bus as well in the same income group, having the same household and everything. Okay, so this is what we call as taste variations. A person who belongs to a specific category of travelers, but he is not choosing as per the other members of his category. He is choosing something else. Okay, and this happens. Human beings are random. Human beings do that. Okay, and this is why even in the class we'll have a student who is doing very well, a student who is doing not so well. What's the difference between them? Same class, same course, and you go through the same steps to come to this class. What's the difference? Their own taste, their own background, and so on. Okay, so this is taste variation. So model should have some flexibility as well. Okay, other specification errors, especially related to the form of the model, I have already talked about it. Okay, then transfer errors, transferring in terms of space or time. Okay, so I mentioned it previously as well. We have aggregation errors. Okay, how do you aggregate the values, combine the values into calculating mean and these things? Data aggregation, aggregation of alternatives. Okay, so data aggregation means when you collected the data, how did you aggregate it? So aggregation error can belong to the aggregation of the entire population or the aggregation of the data which you have collected. Okay, and then we can have aggregation of alternatives as well. Okay, in some cases you will find, for example, that people who are going by taxi are very low in the population, for example. Okay, so you may decide taxi is similar to a car because it takes you from your house. There is no there is no waiting time, and it will take you to your destination directly. So a taxi in many respects is similar to a car. Why should I keep this? Maybe only 1% people are selecting the taxi. So why should I keep it separately? Why don't I merge it with the car option? Okay, so you will have one alternative, which is car and taxi combined. Okay, similarly, you may have very few people who are walking, and you may have very few people who are taking a bicycle. Okay, so you may say both of them require physical effort and it will be done by fit people, young people. Why don't I merge them? So this is aggregation of alternatives. Okay, or aggregating the choices of the people, choices which are similar to each other and choices for which you know if you keep them separately, then you will not get many responses. Okay, then model aggregation. Okay, so you take a model from one part of the world, you try to apply to the other part of the world. That is the model aggregation error. Okay, now you can make your model as complicated as you want. Okay, it will increase the accuracy. More complex models have higher accuracy normally. Normally, higher accuracy models are more complicated as compared to lower accuracy models. Okay, so for example, you want to calculate an equation for z. Okay, z is anything, output, and it depends upon the values of x. Okay, so you have number of x parameters which can help you to predict the value of z. Okay, now if you want to calculate the error in this for this equation, the error term for this equation, now for calculating the error term, we use this equation. Okay, so for calculating the error, what do? We take the, basically the concept is, if you change the value of x, how much change in f you would have. Okay, so you differentiate partial, you do partial differentiation. For calculating the error term, the main thing which you are doing is partial differentiation. So you do partial differentiation of z with respect to each x value. So first time you will do it with respect to x1, then you will do it with respect to x2 and x3 and so on. Okay, so in the end the error can be calculated as this equation. So partial differentiation with each x multiplied by the error of that x, measurement error of that x. Okay, so for example, let's say x1 is income, so ex1 will be the measurement error in income, error in measuring the income. Let's say x2 is speed, then ex2 will be the error in measuring the speed. Okay, so take the partial differentiation, multiply by the error of measurement for that term, the error of measurement for that term. Okay, plus this whole thing, and again you can see the partial differentiation as well. Okay, and this is here you are taking partial differentiation, and then you are multiplying it. This is this term is what we call as interaction error. Okay, everything has the same meaning. Okay, partial differentiation of z with respect to xi, partial differentiation of z with respect to xj, and the error for each term multiplied and rij, which is a correlation. Okay, correlation between x1 and x2. Okay, what is the correlation between x1 and x2? So we call it the interaction error or the interaction term. Now, if you remember in the last chapter, I told you that the variables which you are putting in the model, they should not be correlated to each other. So x1 should not be correlated to x2 or x3 or x4 up to xn. And same thing for the other x values as well. No x should be correlated to the other values. Okay, so in that case, rij will be 0. The correlation between xi and xj will be 0. So if this is 0, this whole term becomes 0 because it is multiplied. Okay, so the error term will be simplified as only this thing. Okay, so the error for any equation can be calculated in this manner. This is a squared error. Okay, this is a squared error. Okay, so that's why you see the square here and the square here as well. So how much error in Z you can have from this equation? This much. Okay, and if you take the partial derivative of the error term with respect to any x value, then this is the answer. Okay, so this is for now each this is for each x value. Okay, how much difference in error you can have because of the measurement error of one x value. Okay, this term is telling you how much how much error x1 measurement is causing in the z value. Okay, this equation is telling you how much error of measurement of x1 or xi will cause in the overall result of z. Okay, so this is the one. This is the overall error of the entire equation, and this is the error caused because of measurement of one variable. Okay, so when you are trying to minimize the error, obviously we cannot make all the errors zero. All the errors cannot be made zero. Okay, there will be some variables on which you can focus more and some variables on which you have to, relax. So which variables you should focus on? Couple of rules are given here. Concentrate on improving the measurement of those variables which induce a large error. Okay, so the variables which have large value here. Okay, so you calculate this term for each variable, and for whichever variable you have the largest term or a larger term compared to other variables, focus on them. Okay, so that particular variable is, or the measurement of that particular variable is causing more error in Z as compared to other variables. Okay, for example, Z is, let's say, car ownership, and X1 is income. So if you make a mistake in measuring the income incorrectly, it may have more impact in creating error on the equation of car ownership as compared to other variables. So try to focus on calculating or collecting the correct income more. Okay, how do you do it? We will discuss it later on. How do we make the improvements, and how do we improve the measurement? We will discuss it later on. Okay, then the second rule is concentrate the effort on the most relevant variables. Okay, those with the largest value of df by dxi. Okay, this thing only. Okay, so concentrate on the variables which have higher impact on the model. One rule. Second rule is concentrate on the variables which are causing larger error on the model, or their error is causing larger error in the model. Okay, so if you can find one variable which is fitting both rules, your work is easy. Now you have to concentrate on one variable, improving its accuracy. Obviously other variables are less important, but that doesn't mean that you will completely avoid them. You still have to take them into consideration, but your focus will be on limited set of variables. Okay, let us look at a problem here. We have a model. So Z depends upon X, Y, and W. Z depends upon X, Y, and W. Three things. For each case, you can see the average. I mean, for each independent variable, you can see the average and its measurement error. So for X, the average is 100, measurement error is plus minus 10. For Y, 50, and error is 5. For W is 200, the error is 50. Okay. The marginal cost, if you want to improve the measurement of X, then it will take like $5. If you want to improve, for example, 1 unit in the accuracy, then it will cost you extra $5. If you want to improve 1 unit in the accuracy of Y, then it will cost you $6 extra. If you want to improve the accuracy W, then it will cost you 20 cents, 22 cents extra. Okay. So for each case, the measurement error is given and so on. Okay. Now, first of all, we can calculate, yeah. So first of all, we calculate the overall error term. The overall error term. Okay. So for overall error, if I go back here, this is the overall error term. Okay. So we need the partial differentiation of Z with respect to each of the independent variable. Okay. So if I do the partial differentiation of Z with respect to X. Okay. Let me go here. The answers are there, but I will try to explain the calculations. Okay, I don't know what is happening here. I'll do it on the slide here. Okay, so if you take partial differentiation of Z with respect to X, you will get Y only. Okay, and then if you do partial differentiation of Z with respect to Y, you will get X only. Okay, and then if you take partial differentiation of Z with respect to W, then you will get 1. Okay, this term will become 0 and this will be 1. Okay, so these are the partial differentiations. Okay, and then if I go here, I need what? For the complete error term, I need to do the square for each partial differentiation into the error term square. Okay, so for example, y square into what was, so this is the partial differentiation with respect to X, right? So I'll multiply with the square of the error term for X, which is 10. So y square into 10 square plus X square into 5 square plus simply 50 square. Okay, so this is what they are doing here. Okay, and if you put the value, so instead of y, x, and instead of y and x, you can put the value of the average values. Okay, so this equation will become, okay, so y square into ex square plus x square. So y was what? Y was a partial differentiation of z with respect to x. Okay, and what was x? The partial differentiation of z with respect to y. Okay, and why don't we have anything here? Because partial differentiation of z with respect to partial differentiation of z with respect to w is 1. Okay, so there is no term here, so just write EW square here. So this is, how did I get this answer? Y square, meaning the average value of y, which is given here 50. Okay, into ex square, which is 10 or 10 square. So it will be 50 into 100 or 50 square into 100, sorry. Plus x square, which is 100 square, into y, the error of y square, which is 5. So 5 square. Plus EW square, meaning the error of W, which is 50 square. Okay, so if you do all this, you will get 502,500. So this is a squared error term, and if you take the under root, you will get this. Okay, you will get this. Then now we need to know, so this is the overall error. This is the overall error. Now we need to know the error caused because of each variable. The error caused because of each variable. Okay, so I will now do the partial differentiation of the error term with respect to each variable. Okay, so if you remove the square from all the terms, because I am doing partial differentiation of e, not e square. Okay, so I can remove the square from all the terms. Okay, and then I can so I know so if I do the if I do the partial differentiation of Ez with respect to, for example, x. Okay, so this term will be gone. Okay, and I will have what did we do? And y square so if you take the partial differentiation of the error term with respect to x, you will get what? Oh, sorry, partial differentiation with respect to e of x. Sorry, e of x. Okay, so you will get what? E of x is how much? E of x is 10. Okay. Okay, so 10y square. Okay. And these all these terms become 0. Okay, so Ez equals to, basically the equation of Ez is y ex plus x ey plus ew. Okay, so I remove the square from all of them, so it becomes the equation for Ez then. So then if you do the partial derivative of Ez with respect to ex, okay, so you will get the value of ex is 10, and this will become 0. This will become 0. Okay, why do we have square here? Okay, okay. Let us have a break for prayers. Okay, I'll meet you after the prayer, and I will check. Okay, why do we have a square here? Okay, so let's have a break for the time being. Okay, I think I need it more than you guys. So I will meet you after the prayers, and I will start from here. Okay, inshallah. 15 minutes.
Bye bye.